Welcome back to another episode of Prose, becoming a pro at Prose. Today, we are going to take a closer look at the opening chapter of Gillian Flynn's psychological thriller, Gone Girl. There is a movie on this with Ben Affleck and a couple other people. Anyway, this is based off the book. So we'll explore how Flynn crafts each sentence to build suspense, deliver her complex characters, and create an atmosphere of uncertainty. By breaking down the prose, we'll examine how Flynn uses word choice, pacing, and structure to draw readers into the twisted narration of Nick and Amy. Now, this analysis will help anyone understand how carefully constructed prose can enhance the story's impact and keep readers on the edge. Today, when we go over Gone Girl, the secrets behind Gillian Flynn's compelling prose, I'm also going to go over some other things. I'm going to show you how books can be published, and there's still room for refinement, and there's still room. Some people they make choices based on their voice as a writer. So, but before we get into it, what is Gone Girl? Just so we have an idea, Gone Girl, written by Gillian Flynn and published in 2012, is, like I said, a psychological thriller that became a cultural phenomenon to the point where they were like, let's make a movie. The story itself centers around the mysterious disappearance of Amy Dunn and the resulting media frenzy that turns her husband Nick into a damn suspect. It was him. The book is known for its sharp, unreliable narrators, the husband and potentially someone else. I don't want to give it away. Intricate plot twists, there are many, and deep exploration of marriage, deception, and media manipulation. It quickly become a bestseller, was nominated for multiple awards, and was adapted into a successful film directed by, you probably heard of this director, but maybe not, David Fincher. I don't know. Fight Club. All right. Gone Girl was written primarily for an adult audience. I would recommend children do not read it. Appealing to readers who enjoy dark, character-driven thrillers with psychological depth and unexpected turns. Okay, analyzing the prose of the prose. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Share the screen. Share the screen. All right, let's get me down here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do. All right. So as always, we're looking to see if stuff is happening, but nothing is happening. What does that mean? Well, that's easy. It means that it is not through the emotional experience or choices of the characters. Basically, it could end up being just pure exposition or description for description's sake. More importantly, when stuff is happening, but nothing is happening, there are no choices being made, no consequences to that choices, and no challenges of character positions. It's just the plot is plotting, and that is it. They have to get in the car, so they get in the car. There's 3 doors, and they have to get through one of them, and they get through the correct door with little effort. There's no pushback. All right. The other thing we're going to look for is there's a thing I call all right. So the 3 in every single sentence, every line, dialogue or narrative, each line has to have one or more of these 3 elements. Plot is moving forward, character development, or world building. You could have 1, 2, or 3 of them, but it must always at any time have that. Now, that doesn't mean the passage is good yet. That's the starting point, but it must be through the emotional experience and choices of the characters. Again, those choices must be challenged. Their positions must be challenged, etc., etc. And that creates movement. That's when things are happening. We're also going to look, which is the challenging of positions. All right. We're also going to talk about what movement change in passages and prose are. Okay. And then what is the tense and what is the POV? This is something I talk about often, but I like that I get to actually show what I mean. So let's start off with the first sentence. When I think of my wife, I always think of her head. All right. Well, this is character development right off the bat. More importantly, it is the tense is when I think of my wife, I always think of her head. This is present, and it's in the POV of someone who is married uh, to a wife. We don't know if it's a he, a she, a they, or whatever, but we do know that it is somebody who is partnered with someone, and they refer to them as a wife. So we know the POV is not the wife. All right. Now, we'll go to the second sentence, and I'll show movement. Okay, so boop, the shape of it to begin with. All right. Now, this is continuing character development because it's following the thought progression, which is movement. All right. What do I mean? When I think of my wife, I always think of her head. All right. Her head. Now we have to define that. What is it that he thinks about when it comes to her head? And then he informs us the shape of it to begin with. The shape of it. All right. Well, I bet you. Well, I already know the book, but all right. Also, if you notice the sentence lengths, let me put that down. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of the head I saw. And there was something lovely about it, the angles of it. So when I think of my wife, I always think of her head. Now we have to inform that the shape of it. That's what he thinks about. Why? Why does he think about the shape of it? Well, because the very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head I saw, and there was something lovely about it, the angles of it. All right. Well, let's get into it. The angles of it, right? And here it goes. Like a shiny, hard corn kernel or a reverbed fossil. He's just defining, he's just going deeper and deeper into the description, right? Let's see. She had what the Victorians would call a finely shaped head. Huh? That's commentary, by there. Could you imagine the skull? Oh, you could imagine the skull quite easily. So it goes from he's thinking about his wife's head, the shape of it specifically. Then he's thinking about this is character development, by the way. There's no plot or world building yet. This is just so far. These three sentences are character development. The very first time I saw her, well, actually, this probably could be plot because it's dictating history, but that's not world building though. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head I saw, and there was something lovely about it, the angles of it. So he's going into what about the shape. So the movement is I always think of her head. We follow that by what is it about the head? Well, it's the shape. Well, what about the shape? Well, the shape reminded him that it was about the very first time I saw her. It was the back of her head I saw her, and there was something lovely about it. Well, what was lovely about it? Well, like a shiny, hard corn kernel on a riverbed fossil. So that is something love. That's what was lovely about it. And then it's a commentary on that. What is his feelings on it? She had what the Victorians would call a finely shaped head, right? You could imagine the skull quite easily. All right, a couple things. This is all character development. This is somewhat plot because it's creating history. This is world building because she had what Victorians would call finely shaped heads. So we are defining the world. The world is in our world because of the Victorians. And as you can see, the movements, it just every sentence moves into the next sentence. That's what it does, right? So far, it's accomplishing every sentence has at least one or more of these three elements. That's plot, character, or world building. It is mostly all character, but that's all right. That's okay. It's character driven so far, right? Now, would you say stuff is happening, but nothing is happening? I would say that stuff is happening only because it is through the emotional experience and choices of the character. The character is making choices to think about the wife. right? And they are driven through the thought of their wife. And it's also creating a creepy kind of like, you could imagine the skull quite easily, right? Now, boop, I didn't know her head anywhere. It's interesting that this is its only sentence in this pro. So this is a nice long pro, and then you can see clearly all the sentences have varied lengths. Very important. Varied lengths help create the rhythm and flow. When I think of my wife, I always think of her head, the shape of it to begin with. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of the head I saw, and there was nothing lovely. There was something lovely about it, the angles of it, like a shiny, hard corn kernel or a riverbed fossil. She had what the Victorians would call a finely shaped head. You can imagine the skull quite easily. I'd know her head anywhere. Now, the reason this is its own sentence is because this is more about the character thinking of the head and his wife, specifically his wife's head. And then this is him thinking that I'd know that head anywhere. Okay, it's a claim, it's a position. The position is they would know that head anywhere. But it's different than him thinking of the head. He's making a statement, he's making a claim. Okay, and that's why it's a movement. Um you can imagine the skull quite easily. It's quite recognizable. So if you added that, it's not this particularly, but it is the same thing, that it's something people could recognize. That would stay in this because it's still talking about the description of it. But once it is a claim, it becomes a claim. Now it becomes a new movement. Now, after he makes a claim, now he's going back to the brain and he's thinking the movement takes us inside the brain. And what's inside it? Oh, I don't know. Juju beans, whatever they call them. Okay. So, and what's inside it? This is still character, by the way. This isn't really plot or world building, but that's okay. Also, we are through the emotional experience. This character's choosing to think about literally the head. Right, too? Are you thinking about it? Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. All right. I think of that too. Her mind. Her mind. All right. I think of that too. Her mind. Now, what's important here is, and what's inside it? The movement leads to, I think of that too. Her mind. Okay. It is going inside. All right. And what's inside? We're talking about her mind. That's the movement. That's the connector. So the sentence leads in there. All right. Her brain, all those coils and her thoughts shuttling through those coils like fast, frantic centipedes. We're supposed to think this guy is crazy. I just want to put that out. But again, quick sentences, right? Two fairly quick sentences followed by a nice long breath. Okay. This is still all very much character development. And then this is a really nice long sentence. Okay. I'd like to point out something too. The character, we're learning about the character. The reason I keep calling character development, because what they are focusing on, the fact that they know what Victorian is. By the way, I think this is the second book in a row that they talked about Victorian. Anyway, so everything that he's mentioning or paying attention to defines who the character is. It is what they know. Because when you're writing the POV of a character, okay, you shouldn't necessarily write outside of what they are aware of or what their knowledge base is. Allow the narrative to stick within the POV of that character, unless you're writing omniscient. If it's third person omniscient, but this is first person. Third person limited and close third person, you would also try to make sure that the POV passages are in their voice. In this situation, it is very much first person. So everything they say is a direct reflection of them. So when you're writing your stories, make sure that the passages are not a reflection of what you want to write, but what it is the character is saying or thinking when it comes to first person. All right. Even I would say even third person limited. Anyway, like a child, I picture opening her skull, unspooling her brain, and sifting through it, trying to catch and pin down her thoughts. All right. So this is character development, Stu. What are you thinking, Amy? Uh-oh. What are you thinking? So again, the sentences are short, then long, then really long, and then we go back to a rhythm of soft. What are you thinking, Amy? Now, this is direct internal thought because it is italicized. All right. The question I've asked myself often during our marriage, if not out loud, if not to the person who could answer. Holy hell. All right. All right. We are in this person's head. We are following. So, what is the movement? Let's go back to this. The movement is he's thinking about his wife's head and the fact that he would know it anywhere, which actually, to be honest, I'd know her head anywhere is plot because it is seeding. Seeding. Oh, let's talk about that as well. Seeding. It's also foreshadowing. That's important too. All right. Seeding and foreshadowing are not the same. Seeding informs information, and then foreshadowing is the potential for reveal, right? Okay, seeding, yeah, earns the right. So, like, if I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I know Long Island, I grew up there. Now, if Long Island comes up later and someone's like, oh, what do they call Montauk? Oh, Montauk Point. And now, how do they know that? Well, we already know they grew up on Long Island. That's seeding. But if they go, I heard the Montauk Point is haunted. That means we're foreshadowing the fact that it may or may not be haunted. It may be discovered that it isn't truly haunted or that it is actually haunted. All right. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those damn kids. So the first is thinking of the wife's head. Then we make a claim that I would know that head anywhere. So that becomes character and plot. And then now we're inside the idea of the head, like the thoughts. So it's all leading. It's outside, my knowledge of, and now we're going inside the head. He loves him. All right. The question I've asked most often during our marriage is not out loud. If not to the person, who could I answer? I suppose those questions storm cloud over every marriage. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Who are you? What have you done with each other? This is all one big presentation, and that's a big long ending. All right. This is a soft chapter break, by the way. Soft and hard chapter breaks. Soft chapter breaks are a small jump in time, usually not a complete switch in POV, but it is showing like a movement, a jump in movement. Okay. Anyway. All right. So the intro is pretty thick. With just thoughts. This is all thoughts and ideas. It's character development, etc., etc. But I also want to talk about something real quick. So this line right here, the very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head I saw. And there was something lovely about it, the angles of it. Right? The very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head. It was the back of her head. And there was something lovely about it. Okay. This is technically that would be the cleanup. 1 second. I saw should be taken out for clarity and flow. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head, and there was something lovely about it, the angles of it, right? But again, you are the writer as she is the writer, and you're allowed to do whatever you want. And this is her voice. She wanted this, and she says I saw it twice, by the way, right? The very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head. Oh, wait. And then, oh, yeah. So it's twice. So the very first time I saw her, it was the back of the head I saw. And there was something. So that's why I saw should be taken out because it's repetitive, right? And we understand that she saw the head. right? It's a filter word now. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of the head, right? But I get it, right? It's all choices. You're the writer. You get to make the choice. And line editors are going to give you those words of wisdom. They're going to say, "Yeah, we already know that he's looking at the back of the head." So the very first time I saw her, it was the back of the head, it was from the back of her head. That would be the cleanup. The very first time I saw her, it was from the back of her head, and there was So that would be the cleanup. But of course, she's allowed to do whatever she wants because they're writers. What else? That's nothing else. She uses italicized. You don't necessarily have to use italicized, but it does emphasize. Victorians would call it a finely shaped head, right? Instead of doing a finely shaped head, right, or whatever. Okay. So remember that. All right. What else? What else? All right. So let's look at this. Let's get the sentence lengths going. I'll do this real quick. Do do do. Do, 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 do. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Do, 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 do. I know too. I know. Who's your good girl? I don't know if you could hear my cat or it just sounds like I'm saying good girl. Who's my good girl? Yeah. All right. I rarely woke up. I know. You just got to give me a minute, okay? Okay, I'm almost done. I promise. Don't be mad at me. I love you. All right. As you can see, there's some spelling errors here because they're harmless. They're thinking it should be harmless. But also, I rarely woke at such a round time. But the grammar would be, I rarely woke up at such a time. This should be the first thing I saw. Right. So again, it happens. But if you look at I like coloring it so we could see the sentence lengths. So as you can see, this is a nice long one, followed by a kind of short one, followed by a really long one, followed by a real quick 6 o'clock to emphasize. Pretty short one. I rarely woke up. So do you see how like the sentence lengths create the rhythm, which in the movement? But let's see. My eyes flipped open at exactly 6 a.m. This is plot. This is not character. This is plot. This was no avian fluttering of the lashes, no gentle blink towards consciousness. Character. The awakening was mechanical. This is character. A spooky ventriloquist dummy. Click of the lids. The world is black and then showtime. Oh, wait. I may have messed up with the color coding. Boop. All right. Okay. So, spooky this is all character because like the way he's describing himself and the way he sees himself in that situation, this is the only plot so far. This is plot right there for this. Okay, let's do this. Technically this is world building because it's establishing they have a 6 o'clock. All right, 6 o'clock, the clock said in my face. First thing I saw, 6 o'clock. All right. Again, what's going on here? What is wrong with me today? Okay. So this is plot. The world is black and then show 6 o'clock. The clock said that's plot. In my face. First thing I saw. That's character. 6 o'clock. That's also technically character, but whatever. It felt different. Well, this is telling. Telling. See, you're allowed to do telling. It felt different. Okay. Character. I rarely woke at such a rounded time. All right. So this is a touch of plot, but mostly character development. I was a man of jagged risings. Oh, Jesus. All right. I was a man of jagged risings, 843, 1151, 926. This is a character and plot because it's defining, it's setting their schedule and who they, but it is mostly character development. My life was alarmless. Jesus. All right. There's a lot going on here. Oh, Jesus, there's a lot going on here. But look, every writer and author has a right to do whatever they want. And, what I like or what you like is never going to be the same. Everything is subjective. It's all opinions. The only thing that matters is this. This stuff is the only thing that matters. Is it there? Great. If it's there, then do what you got to do. So stuff isn't just happening here. Things are actually happening, but it's through the characters' frustration, and they seem to be not meticulous per se, but like they're pulling us through their morning and like how it's off kilter. And the reason that creates movement, it's that's why the timing, like it's 6 o'clock. I usually get up at jag. That is sort of like leans on plot. It's mostly character, but it does lean on plot because it's saying that they're off kilter right now. It's saying that because if you know the story, especially, you know that it filters back saying that he hasn't been sleeping well because his quote unquote something is missing. Which brings me to this. Remember, this is for educational purposes only. I am a writing teacher, an author, and a developmental editor. Oh, and obviously, spoiler alerts. Just saying. All right. A couple things I want to go over here. It definitely has some of this right here. Doesn't have this, and it definitely doesn't have these two things. We are challenging the positions. How are we doing that, Thomas? That's a great question. My eyes flipped open at exactly 6 a.m. This was no avian fluttering of the lashes, no gentle blink towards consciousness. The awakening was mechanical, a spook event. Okay, I know too. So this is the challenge because he says the clock struck 6. It said 6. It felt different. I rarely woke at such a rounded time. I was a man of jagged risings. All right. All this is the position. They don't usually wake to a clock. They just wake naturally. And now they're being forced to wake at 6. They're being challenged. And it's throwing them off their game. They're off kilter, etc. I know. All right. Let's see. There is movement. My eyes flipped open at exactly 6 a.m. Okay. Why is this important? Why is 6 a.m. important? Well, let's define it. This was no, or let's solidify it. So this was no avian fluttering of the lashes, no gentle blink towards consciousness. What do you mean? Well, I was awakening. It was a mechanical awakening, right? Right. He's defining what he just said. He's still going though. A spooky ventriloquist dumbing click of the lids. The world is black, and then showtime. 6 o'clock. The clock said in my face. Honestly, all right. Just for the record, this should be one sentence like that for smooth and clarity. This should be the right. Yeah. In my face, the first thing I saw. Oh yeah, we already talked about that. This redundancy thing. The 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. The clock said. So in my face is not needed because we know he's seeing it. So 6 o'clock. You could just say the first thing I saw. But again, remember, everything they write is their choice. They're the author. It's their style. It's their voice. So sometimes grammar or like clarity or flow can be ignored for your voice. This is a best-selling book. All right. And still there's redundancy and things like that. Also, honestly, I personally think this is meandering. It's like, all right, let's get to it. But it is showing that their life is right. Well, this is just about it, the wife. Let's see. When I think of my wife, I always think of her head, the shape of it to begin with. The very first thing in that blah blah blah. Yeah, all right, anyway. All right, let's see. Sentence lengths are all moved around. The tense is still the same, and the focus is still on the hubby. Seating and foreshadowing. The seating is explaining their sleep schedule. So that's seating, by the way. That's like it's not overly explaining it. The only thing that's really like bothering me is just like how many times do we have to explain how? Anyway, so the next movement is where the first movement. This movement is they are waking up at 6 and how they are waking up. Now we have to be in that moment. All right, we are in that moment. So let's just do this real quick. Okay, it's only 4 sentences. All right. Yeah. Boop. You will be seen. You will be seen. Do it. All right. At that exact moment, 6 o'clock, the sun climbed over the. We need to know it's 6 o'clock. So that's plot. At the exact time, 6 o'clock, the sun climbed over the sky line of oaks, revealing its full summer, angry God's self. Its reflection flared across the river toward our house. A long, blaring finger aimed at me through our frail bedroom curtains, accusing, "You have been seen. You will be seen." All right. First off, if it was just this, like for example, if this was just at that exact moment, 6 o'clock, this would be an example of stuff is happening, but nothing is happening. Because this is just pure exposition and description for description's sake. But because it is through the POV, okay, because our house, it is through the POV of the character, and ultimately their emotional experience. They are seeing the 6 a.m. sun climb over the skyline without it saying he saw or he looked at the sun climbing. It's just what he's experiencing. The sun climbed over the skyline of oaks, revealing its full summer angry God's self. This hopefully her intent was that this is a direct reflection of what the character is feeling, but also how they are perceiving the sun's awakening presence on them. Again, make sure that, especially in first person, that your lines are through the narrative perspective, the emotional experience of the characters. The word choices you pick are going to influence the character's growth. And again, this is plot. And because of that, this is also character. And then its reflection flared across the river toward our house, a long, blaring finger aimed at me through our frail bedroom. So this is just a visual, like atmosphere and stuff like that. But it is character development, right? Okay. And then accusing, you have been seen, you will be seen. So this person feels they are to blame for something because we don't know yet. I mean, we know if you've seen it or read the book, but in this moment, it is seeding the emotional feeling that does get revealed, that is earned, that like there's a purpose for them feeling accused, there's a purpose for them feeling blamed, there's a purpose for them feeling disoriented. All of that is accurate. And let's do the and the movement is the same. So This is he's waking up. Now he's up. So at that exact moment, 6 o'clock, he sees the sun. Okay. And it reveals its anger. Okay. But what does the sun influence? The sun, and what is the angry god itself? What does the sun do? It reflects across the river. How does it reflect off the river? Well, it blaring finger aimed at him because, like it's probably showing the reflection of the sun. What is that representing internally? Even though it's external, it turns into internal because it's their direct perspective. It is self-accusation, self-judgment, etc. Okay. So all that is happening. Now, from here, I wallowed in bed. All right. So the movement is they wake up in this scene, this passage. They are experiencing 6 o'clock at that moment, and now they lay in bed. I wallow in bed, which was our New York bed in our New York house, which we still called the new house, even though we'd been back here for 2 years. All right, that is plot. Thank God there's some plot. But it is also character development because I wallowed in bed, which was this is exposition, but it's through character. So it turns into that's another thing. Character exposition. See, each time I do these lessons on the prose, it reminds me to talk about specific things. All right, there we go. All right, character exposition is through the experience of characters or through the presentation. Of course, if this whole thing turns out to be description or exposition, my first suggestion to an author is to seed. But as you can see, sometimes who cares, right? Because that's exactly what this passage is. It's a rented house right along the Mississippi River, a house that screams suburban, Novancy rich, the kind of place I aspired to as a kid from my split level shag carpet side of town. Jesus. All right. Okay, let me what is this word? Nouveau reach. All right. Anyway, that's a really long sentence too. Okay. This is character. It is exposition. It is character exposition. It is also plot, though. It's a rented house right along the Mississippi River. All right. The plot is they are renting a house. So the plot that must happen no matter what is suggesting that they must live in a rented house on the Mississippi River. How they live in that house would be story. Okay. A house that screams suburban, nouveau rich. The kind of place I aspire to. That's character. All right. So this is plot. It's definitely world building and it's character. All right. So it's all three. And the reason is why? Well, because this and this creates the world. It defines the world. We are in real world. Okay. I aspire to as a kid. This is a representation of a position. The position is they aspired to be in a place like this as a kid from their history of split level, shag carpet side of town, more character development. Okay. All right. Jesus. Okay. All right. The kind of house that immediately familiar. Oh, wait. The kind of house that is immediately familiar. A generically grand, unchallenging, new house that my wife would and did detest. All right. A couple things. The kind of house that is immediately familiar. This is character development because of the way they perceive it. A generically grand, unchallenging, new house, still character, that my wife would, this becomes plot because would, past tense. This is all in present tense, so that's past tense. And did, that is also past tense. Detest. So it's character, and it is definitely, okay, plot. And again, I wallow in my bed, in my new bed, in our new house. New house sets up the movement. So they have to explain the new house. The new house, which we still called new house. Now we have to define this. That's what by the way, commas also, you have to create a new movement from the commas to explain what just happened. That's also a good way of saying like, stop. Thomas said, standing near the fence. Tall, its bright white stain. Stain absorbing the sun. Heat. The midday. In the heat in the midday, life continued around him. All right. So the movement is stop, Thomas said, stepping. What the? Near the fence. All right. Well, what kind of fence is it? Tall with its bright white stain absorbing the sun. Oh, what about the sun? Well, in the heat of the midday, now we have defined where the sun is and why it is still hot. Life continued around him. All right. Life continued around him. Thief kept running. All right. There you go. Anyway. What do you mean? Yeah, let me go away. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So to explain movement real quick. Stop, Thomas said, standing near the fence, tall with its bright white stain absorbing the sun. Okay. Thomas said, where is Thomas when he said it? Well, he's standing near a fence. What about the fence? Well, the fence is tall with its bright white stain absorbing the sun. Okay. Well, what time of day is it that the sun is out, that it is hot? Well, it's in the heat of the midday. Okay. We're basically we're informing the beats beforehand, the movement of the beats. And now in the midday, life continued around him. Why is that important? But the thief kept running, which brings us back to the original movement. Anyway. All right. So movement is important. The movement is here. So he's laying in bed of his new house that they've been here for 2 years. Oh, for 2 years? Yeah. What about the house? Well, it's rented. And where is it? Well, Mississippi. A house that screams. Now they're describing the house. You can choose, by the way, what you focus on. But if you bring something up, it's a rented house. You can talk about the house now, but it's also right along the Mississippi River, which means you have the option to talk about Mississippi River. But in this sentence, it talks about the house that screams. It's defining the house, okay? It describes this style of house. Now, comma, what about that style is important? Well, it's the kind of place I aspired to as a kid from the split, all this other crap, right? The kind of house, now he's going to define the house one last time, the kind of house that is immediately familiar. And then why is it immediately familiar? Because it's generically grand, unchallenging, new house that my wife would and did detest. Which, by the way, brings us back to when I think of my wife. So before we even get well, this is in the book. This is the top of page 2 in the book. But before we even get through the whole second page, we're already being reminded that he's thinking of his wife. So all of this got brought back to his wife. So that's good too, right? So it has plot, it has character, it has world. It is not pure exposition or description for description's sake because it moves through the character's experiences. We are not challenging much, but we are creating positions, which is good. You want to create positions. All right. Let's see. The POV is there. The tense is the same. Sentence lengths. Now, this is interesting. We're breathing in this moment because this becomes important. So if you look at the beginning, the sentence changed pretty much. And the closer we get, this kind of like moves around. But then he's annoyed and aggravated that he woke up. So it's quick. Don't. Then there's a nice little, and then there's more quick. Look how quick these sentences are. And now it slows down. At that exact moment, 6 o'clock. Now he's taking in the sun. He's looking at the reflection. It makes him feel accused. And that's quick because he's just like, oh, Jesus, I'm accused. I'm a bad guy. Right. And now he's wallowing in bed and he's thinking about the house. So it's all slow. And that's how you create a rhythm and flow. Your sentences are going to create that rhythm and flow, but they do have to follow the movement of thought or narrative. Each sentence, especially with a comma or a period, needs to move into the next beat. And depending on how the emotional truth, I like that too. The emotional truth, how the how the emotional truth influences the movement of that sentence or passage. So there you go. Let's see. Oh, and this is the soft chapter break. And the reason is because we're going from him thinking and now he is waking up. So honestly, he's probably having this dream. This is a dream that he's having. And then he woke up. And he's like, "Oh, hey guys." I think that's accurate because even in the movie it's like that. Like he's just picturing his wife and then he kind of wakes up and he's like, "Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Jesus. I'm Ben Affleck." Oh yeah. Okay. What's this say? No, vivericchi, no, vivericchi. All right. That's what this is. No, vivericchi. I guess that's it. Look at that. Nick Dunn, the day of chapter 1. Oh, there's another thing. So, some people they don't name their chapters. They just say chapter 1. Sometimes they'll just have the number 1. It's okay to name your chapters. Make sure that they do connect to the chapter in some way, but they also shouldn't give away too much. Boop. This is a long passage, by the way. Just I'll give you some critiques and my thoughts. This is a long one. By the way, the next passage directly after this last one is really long. But as you can see, this is 84 words. This one should be like 96 or something. 106. I was close. But this one, look at it. Look how quick this one is. 5. All right. So your passage lengths should go as long as they need to go for the movement of the subject for that passage or pro. But also, you have to learn when to stop, cut off, and jump off or slow down because you don't want it to fall into pure exposition or description for description's sake. And it easily can fall into stuff is happening. For example, he thought of his wife. Wife's head, the shape of it. The shape of it, and how it shined like hard corn kernels or a river bed fossil. Sorry. This is what stuff is happening but nothing is happening looks like. This is telling, it's not showing. It's pure exposition. He thought of his wife's head, the shape of it, and how it shined like hard corn kernels or riverhead fossil. All right. It's not really in the POV. It's me dictating what, and you don't want something to come off as dictation or otherwise. All right. Boop. Where are we? Hey, I'm really tiny. Hey, look at me. I'm really tiny. Where are we? Oh, oh, no, things change. Now remember that things change. Since the release of Gone Girl, the psychological thriller genre has undergone significant changes, mostly because of society and the way world evolves. That's just how life is. It exists in one world and becomes a new world. No one is writing like Mark Twain anymore. I'm just saying. But Flynn's work helped redefine the genre, popularizing the unreliable narrative and the dual perspective storytelling techniques. All right. In fact, my epic fantasy has dual perspective storytelling. All right. Book 2, though, has 4. Anyway, however, as more authors have embraced these elements, the genre itself has continued to evolve. As you will notice, modern thrillers often focus on broader range of perspectives and increasingly diverse character backgrounds, while emphasizing immediacy and pacing. Contemporary prose also specifically in thrillers, do lean more towards brevity, with less reliance on extensive background or introspection, and a greater focus on external action and dialogue to keep readers fully engaged. Gone Girl is an example of slowing it down, giving some exposition through character, and, there's a lot of internal thought going on. If we look at Gone Girl, it's really about how the genre allows us to appreciate what remains a timeless classic in Flynn's approach, but also explore new ways to push the boundaries, because you're supposed to look at the past and say, what do you like, what don't you like, and how to move it around. But the other thing is, uh, if you take notice to works that have been published, especially by big companies, the big publishing houses and stuff like that, uh, the rule of cool will always prevail. Sometimes grammar will be pushed aside for the rule of voice. Voice is always cool. Your voice as a writer will always dictate it, the flow of it. But also, being its first person, it is in the voice of the character. So you can use shorthand. You could say can't instead of cannot. I mean, you could do that in anything, but it could be slang, it could be short form. Traditionally, narrative, if like a character's name, Robert, right? A character in dialogue might call them Bob, but in narration, it'll always be Robert. However, unless of course they're established as Bob, but however, if a first person character is going, it's like, oh, there's Robert. Bob's always been like that, right? Like it might write like that. So keep that in mind. Final thoughts. Gone Girl teaches us the power of unreliable narrative. Not that we really went into the whole book, but as writers, it's important to remember that developing your voice takes time and experimentation. Understanding what makes successful novels work really is how you're going to sharpen your own tools. What do you like? What don't you like? What stands out for you? Finding your voice is about finding what does work for your experience and assimilating it into and through your style, because your unique voice is what will set you apart with your work. Now, writing is about creating the strongest version of your own ideas, drawing from the past, embracing the present, and using your voice to make your stories truly yours for the future. You don't have to replicate what has been done before. You only need to allow your own stories to come to life on the page. You want to take risks, have fun, and don't be afraid to experiment. After all, writing is about the joy of creating something new, and there are literally no limitations to what you can do because it's all fake and made up. You can literally be like, he sat on the beach on the riverside of the Mississippi River, and it flowed with yellows and goos, a substance that has always been life altering and rejuvenating to the skin for anyone who dared to swim within it. However, us humans are limited to the time we can expose ourselves into that river. But the Groglars from planet love the feel of it running down their legs on a hot winter day. All right. All that could take place in our world and you could change it. It's all fake. It's all fake. Anyway, next video in this series. All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. Yeah, Niven. Jennifer Niven, which is a contemporary young adult romance. So we get to what's romance? Why are they so happy at the end? All right. I only make that joke often because somebody wrote a review once on a romance book, and they were like, I have never read romance. I'm not really a fan of romance, but I was given this book as an arc, and it's horrible. Why do they have to end up why are they happily ever after? And there's too much romance and like everyone's kissing. Why would you give this book a 1 star? Just don't be like, I don't read romance. It's still bad. Anyway, question. What do you think makes the unreliable narrators so effective in stories? Let me know in your comments below. And also, what did you learn today specifically by us going through the prose of the prose? If you like what you've been watching, but you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.